It's easy to miss a great game when something bigger is grabbing all the headlines. But every now and then you stumble across a new PC release that makes you wonder how more people aren't talking about it. So, today I'm bringing you 15 recent PC games that are seriously flying under the radar. So starting off at number 15, we have Moss the Forgotten Relic. This is actually a compilation that bundles both Moss games into one package, and it just came out on PC for the first time after being a PSVR and Quest mainstay for years. You play as Quill, this tiny little mouse hero, and you're guiding her through these gorgeous diorama-like storybook environments, solving puzzles and doing some light combat. It's not a new game exactly, but this PC port is huge, because it includes all the DLC, enhanced visuals, and even a skip combat option for people who just want the exploration and story. And the orchestral score by Jason Graves, that alone is worth the price of admission. I mean, the game already won over 160 awards on other platforms, so we know it's good. But the PC version finally lets you experience it with higher frame rates and sharper textures, and it's only $20. So if you've been curious about Moss but never had a VR headset, now's the time. It's a charming, heartfelt adventure that doesn't overstay its welcome, and honestly, it's one of those games that just makes you smile. Now next up at number 14, Ghostkeeper is one I've had my eye on for a while because it's explicitly inspired by the cult classic Ghostmaster. You command a crew of ghosts, demons, and beasts in 19th century England, and your job is to scare the living while avoiding the Brotherhood, who wants to exorcise you. It just hit full 1.0 a few weeks ago after being in early access since January, so it's finally feature complete. The Victorian atmosphere is thick, the humor is grotesque in a fun way, and each monster has unique abilities that force you to think tactically. I mean, it's a strategy game where you're literally haunting people, so if that doesn't sound fun, I don't know what does. The full release brought new campaigns, more spirits, and better balance, and early impressions from the community are pretty positive. It's not going to set the world on fire, but for fans of the original Ghostmaster or anyone who likes quirky management games, this is a solid pickup. And you know, it's cheap, it's charming, and it respects your time. Coming in at number 13, Pathogenic is one of those games that sounds gross but plays incredibly satisfying. You're a lone parasite, and you're fighting through the human body against white blood cells and other hostile pathogens. It's a 2D roguelike twin-stick shooter, where you rip out organelles from enemy cells and graft them onto yourself to build your own custom pathogen. Flagella for speed, mitochondria for power, spikes for melee, secretors for ranged attacks, and the environments are procedurally generated, so you're going through lungs, heart, brain, all these organic landscapes with soft body physics that make everything feel squishy and alive. It just came out a few weeks ago, and PC Gamer actually called it the best attempt at realizing the lost potential of the cell stage from Spore. That's high praise. The combat's fast, the controls feel really good, and, you know, even when you die, you're unlocking new organelles for future runs. So it's one of those games where failure feels productive. If you liked games like Dead Cells but want something weirder and more biological, this one's worth a look. Now at number 12, we have a game about chopping trees. Well, the title of this game already says what this game is all about. But for a more detailed context, a game about chopping trees is a first-person lumberjack simulator where there's no timers, no enemies, no stress. You just chop trees, sell the timber, upgrade your axe and grip strength, and replant saplings to keep the forest healthy. You travel between different forest areas on a handcar, pumping levers along rails, and you can play solo or in two-player co-op. It came out just last month, literally, and it's from Space Raccoon Game Studio, published by Spaghetti Cat. It's pure vibes, and honestly, sometimes that's exactly what I need after a long day of intense shooters and strategy games. The physics of the chopping feel surprisingly satisfying, the sound design is crunchy and immersive, and there's something therapeutic about just clearing a patch of trees and watching the sunlight come through. It's not going to challenge your reflexes or your brain, but not every game needs to. So if you're looking for a chill, low-anxiety experience to unwind with, this is it. Coming in at number 11 is Denshattack, and okay, somebody had to pitch this idea in a meeting with a completely straight face. You're controlling a train, except you're not really driving a train in the normal sense. You're grinding rails, drifting, flipping, wall riding, and performing tricks while flying through these ridiculously colorful versions of Japan. Basically, imagine Tony Hawk, Sonic, and Jet Set Radio getting thrown into a train simulator and then deciding they don't care about realism anymore. And actually, that's the charm. You're moving ridiculously fast through cities, volcanoes, oceans, and other environments, and the whole game is built around keeping that momentum going. There are even bizarre boss encounters involving other trains, because apparently normal train racing wasn't strange enough. Now, I will say the speed can take some getting used to. The game has checkpoints and customizable difficulty to make things more manageable though, because you're going to need them. while you're learning how all this movement works. There's also been some criticism around how much freedom the trick system really gives you, with certain sequences feeling more scripted than some players expected. Still, I mean, look at this thing. It's a train doing skateboard tricks. You don't need another generic action game when somebody's willing to make something this ridiculous. And sometimes being completely ridiculous is exactly why a game deserves attention. Now at number 10, we have the Mound Omen of Cthulhu. This is a co-op horror action adventure from Ace Team, the folks behind Xenoclash, so you know it's going to be weird and atmospheric. It just came out a few weeks ago, and it's inspired by Lovecraft's novel of the same name. You're an explorer searching for treasure in a cursed jungle, but there's this madness system that distorts your perception. You start seeing things, hearing things, and friendly fire becomes a real threat because you can't always trust what's real. It supports up to 4 players with full crossplay between PC, PS5, and Xbox, which is great for a group session. The combat is visceral, the jungle environments are dense and oppressive, and the co-op mechanics actually encourage communication because you have to call out what you're seeing versus what others see. It's a 20% discount launch sale until the end of July, so if you've been looking for a horror game that's not just jump scares but actual psychological tension, this is a solid choice. It's not perfect, the AI can be a bit janky at times, but the atmosphere and the madness gimmick really set it apart. Okay, number 9 is Goblin Camp, and this one's been in early access for about 2 years, but it finally hit 1.0 this month. You lead a band of goblins building a settlement in a procedurally generated northern forest, and it's heavily inspired by Finnish mythology. There's deep simulation here like fishing, farming, slash-and-burn agriculture, water physics, shaman magic, spirits, and bonfire sacrifices. You can also play in peaceful mode if you don't want combat. It's got over 60 unique structures, 100 items, 80 crafting recipes, and 31 texts to unlock. The overall reviews are very positive, but recent reviews are mixed, which suggests some balance changes or bugs from the 1.0 patch might have rubbed people the wrong way. I'd say if you're into city builders like RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress but want something a bit more fantasy and less punishing, this is worth checking out. The goblin aesthetic is charming, and the procedural maps mean every run feels different. Just keep an eye on the recent patch notes to see if they smooth out those issues, but honestly, for the price, it's a lot of content. Moving on to number 8, Ascend to Zero is a time-bending action roguelike where you freeze time to fight through the ruins of a collapsed technological civilization. You play as the Chrono Child, a being created to travel back and stop a mechanical apocalypse. It just came out earlier this month, and it's available day 1 on Xbox Game Pass, which is a huge deal if you're subscribed. The time manipulation mechanic is genuinely clever, like you can freeze enemies, slow projectiles, and even rewind your own position to dodge attacks. The builds evolve each run with unique avatars and upgrades, so there's a lot of replayability. PC Mag gave it a solid review, saying it elevates the roguelike formula with that time mechanic, though they noted pacing and variety could be better. I've played a bit, and I gotta say, the combat feels punchy and responsive, and the time freeze never gets old. It's not the deepest roguelike out there, but it's a lot of fun for short sessions. And if you have Game Pass, you literally have no excuse not to try it. And at number 7, we have Arcane Ascent. Now this is kind of a roguelike deck builder that's been out for a few months now, but it's still flying under the radar. You climb an arcane tower, and each elemental door you choose changes the enemies, events, rewards, and even the final boss. You build spell decks, use alchemy to craft artifacts, summon demons, and wield legendary weapons. It's got procedural NPC encounters and card combos that make every run unique. The reviews are mostly positive from a small sample, so it's not a massive hit, but it's a solid little deck builder for fans of Slay the Spire or Monster Train. The presentation is lightweight, like it can even run on a potato PC. What I like is that the elemental choice actually feels meaningful, not just cosmetic. Picking fire might lead to more aggressive enemies, but better damage cards, while water might lean into defense and control. It's not groundbreaking, but it's competent, and for the price, it's a good way to kill a few hours. I'd say if you're burnt out on the big deck builders, this one offers a fresh spin. Now at number 6, if you grew up playing PC games in the late 90s, seeing this franchise come back is pure nostalgia. Backyard Baseball released about a month ago, bringing the iconic arcade series into full 3D while keeping that classic easy-to-pick-up feel. The legendary Pablo Sanchez is back alongside the original Backyard kids, playing pickup games across classic fields like Steel Stadium. The controls are simple and responsive. You swing, pitch, and field with straightforward timing, but then you throw in wild arcade power-ups like aluminum bat super hits and fireball pitches that completely bend logic. As you can see, watching Pablo smash a home run over a neighborhood fence in full 3D just brings an instant smile to your face. Right now, the package focuses heavily on single-player season modes and local play, with online multiplayer planned for a later update. So if you are looking for a super serious, deep baseball simulation, this is definitely not that. But as a fun, charming retro sports revival you can just drop into for a quick match, it hits every single nostalgic note perfectly. And now we're getting into some of the games where I really wish more people were talking about them. Number 5 is Forgotlings, and the visual style alone makes this thing incredibly easy to remember. The whole world is built around forgotten objects that have somehow become living creatures. Old toys, discarded belongings, and other forgotten things make up this strange society, and you play as Fig while leading the crew of the Valere through a world divided between 5 tribes. There's a story about identity, belonging, and being forgotten, though thankfully you don't need to know much more than that going in. The gameplay mixes exploration, platforming, puzzles, and combat, while your choices can influence how the story develops and lead toward different endings. So it's not just a pretty game with a cool art style, there's actually a narrative structure underneath all that weirdness. And I mean, the artwork really does carry a lot of personality. The sound design helps too, giving the whole thing a distinctive atmosphere. Now, it isn't flawless. Some players have run into bugs and rough edges that can occasionally force you to reload, which is frustrating when the rest of the presentation feels so carefully crafted. Still, this is exactly the kind of game that can get lost because it doesn't belong neatly to one giant genre. It's an adventure, platformer, action game, and narrative experience all at once, and somehow it makes being forgotten look beautiful. So at number 4, we have Ghostmaster Resurrection, and if you remember the original Ghostmaster from 2003, this one should immediately make sense. You're not playing the people trying to survive a haunting. You're the thing doing the haunting. Basically, you command an army of supernatural creatures and use their abilities to terrorize the residents of Gravenville while solving puzzles and managing your resources. I mean, that's still a ridiculously good premise. You get different supernatural creatures, different powers, and different ways of messing with the people around you. So the fun comes from figuring out how all those pieces work together. The modern version brings updated graphics, lighting, and interface improvements, while keeping the strategy and puzzle-focused structure that made the original so unusual. There's also a nice mixture of horror and dark comedy here, which gives it a personality that a lot of supernatural strategy games don't have. Now, the reception has been pretty strong overall, although longtime fans have pointed out some bugs and changes that they feel don't capture everything the original did so well. That's fair. A remaster or resurrection has a difficult job when people already love the weird little details of the old game. Still, having this kind of supernatural management game available again is great. You know, there aren't many games where your biggest strategic question is basically, which ghost should I use to ruin this person's evening? And that's exactly why I like it. Coming in at number 3 is Warhounds, and this one's for anybody who likes games such as XCOM or Jagged Alliance, but wants something a little different from the usual tactical formula. You're managing an elite mercenary squad, recruiting operators, upgrading your base, and fighting through an alternative future conflict in Africa. The interesting part is how the game handles combat. Instead of relying heavily on traditional hidden hit percentages, the developers have built the system around actual ballistics and positioning. So basically, where you stand matters, what you can see matters, your line of fire matters, and the projectile behavior is meant to be predictable. I really like that philosophy because there's something incredibly satisfying about knowing why a shot worked or failed instead of blaming some invisible number. There are also systems like cone-based Overwatch, which can make the covered area easier to understand than simply selecting a few tiles and hoping everything behaves. Now, this is one of the newer games here, so I'm keeping my expectations in check. The reception is still settling, and early impressions have pointed out that it needs more content and refinement. That's normal for something this fresh. Still, the core idea is strong. If you like tactical games where positioning feels like an actual tactical decision instead of just moving pieces around a grid, Warhounds has something worth watching. It's rough in places, sure, but the foundation is really interesting. Coming in at number 2, Kill the Shadow is an atmospheric Chinese cyber-noir detective RPG that just came out about a week ago. It's a 2.5D pixel art game where you play as Lucas, a former detective who can reconstruct the final moments of the dead. That's the hook. You investigate crime scenes by literally seeing how the victim died. The setting is Dark Tide City, an alternate post-war city fractured by an unexplained event 10 years earlier. It's semi-open, with exploration, dialogue choices, and multiple endings. The art style is gorgeous, with neon-drenched streets and moody lighting, and the writing is smart and nuanced. It gives me strong Blade Runner meets Disco Elysium energy, which is a high bar, but from what I've played so far, it's hitting that mark. It's $17 with a 10% launch discount, and it's published by Phoenix Games. It's a bit niche, and the puzzle solving can be obtuse at times, but if you love detective games with a supernatural vibe, this one's a gem. I really hope more people find it. And finally, at number 1, it's Agent 64 Spies Never Die, and this is probably the game on the list that made me stop and go, okay, somebody really wanted to bring that old school spy shooter feeling back. If you grew up with GoldenEye 007 or Perfect Dark, the inspiration here is obvious. You're getting objective-based missions, secret areas, stealth sections, old-school gunplay, and that very specific late 90s console FPS style. And I mean, it's not just borrowing the visual look. The campaign has 14 missions across locations like skyscrapers, nightclubs, museums, catacombs, and snowbases, and higher difficulty levels add extra objectives. So there's an actual reason to replay missions instead of simply making the enemies harder. Then you've got online and split-screen co-op, plus multiplayer for up to 8 players, which is exactly the sort of thing I love seeing in a retro-inspired shooter. The game also evolved quite a bit during development, with multiplayer co-op and a level editor becoming part of the package. Now, this one literally just came out, so the reception is still settling, and there's no meaningful Steam consensus yet. That's important. I'm not going to pretend we've already got the final verdict. Still, from what's available, the developers clearly understand the specific kind of shooter they're trying to recreate. They're not making another modern boomer shooter. They're making a proper old-school spy FPS. And yeah, that's enough to get my attention. Which one of these caught your eye? Or did we miss a recent indie favorite that you have been playing nonstop? Drop us a comment down below and let us know. If you enjoyed the video, click that like button, and if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, now is a great time to hit that button. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.